Social media is a big part of our everyday lives, from posting blogs to messaging to even the news. It has drastically molded our world as we know it. But what would happen if it was taken away? Our society is heavily dependent on social media, so how well would we fare without it? Before we answer it, let's look at how we could interpret this question. There are two different ways we could look at this which would make a drastic change. First of all, we could talk about what would have happened if social media was never invented in the first place. And while this does bring some interesting points, society would have probably had minimal issues and kept using things like letters and overall just adapted. So that's why there's a better alternative to this. What would happen if we currently lost social media? What would happen if our society, so dependent on social media, just suddenly wasn't able to use it anymore? There are two sides to this problem. First off, let's talk about the negative effects. Social media is defined as any application or website that allows their users to engage in social networking. This includes, but is not limited to, messaging apps, blog websites, news websites, and anything with comments, like let's say Reddit or YouTube, for example. If we suddenly couldn't message or call anyone with social media, that would make things very inconvenient. We would most likely have to go back to using landline phones or letters or some other form of communication. And people spend lots of time every day messaging people. Not being able to do this anymore can make for significant loss of social activity, because lots of people do this as a substitute for social interaction in the world. Now, the main thing social media is used for is entertainment. People watch videos, post blogs, and generally just have fun on social media. A study showed that the average teen spends around 9 hours a day on social media, which is a really surprising statistic and a huge amount of time on social media when you factor in things like school and sleep that many teens have. Not having social media would most likely increase boredom in lots of people around the world. People spend so much time on social media, and taking it away would leave them forced to find new things. And this could be as much as a good thing as much as it could be bad. It's just that the bad effects would end up happening first and at a greater degree. Moving on from entertainment, we have information. People like to post information about themselves on social media, as almost a sort of substitute for social interaction at times. And people like looking at what other people do just as much as posting things themselves. Taking this away would make them feel a sort of emptiness. And there are news sites online that technically count as social media. Without news sites online, people wouldn't be finding out about important events nearly as fast. This would be a huge issue, especially if it's a political issue and people can't hear it fast. Don't forget, big companies like Apple and Google advertise on social media. If they suddenly couldn't do that anymore, less people would find out about and buy their products. This is true for every big company. If less people are buying their products, they would have less money, which could lead to some issues with the economy due to how much of a portion of the economy these big companies have. Now, while this is a lot of negative things, good things would also happen if social media was removed. For starters, people would go do other things. Social media is a big distraction for a lot of people, for things like academics. Without social media, people might be encouraged to start focusing more on schoolwork. People would also probably go outside more, as evidence shows that one of the main reasons people stay in their homes is because they're on social media, whether it be something as important as a business call or something as silly as a blog post. A second benefit would be that people could have more free time. While people could get bored of suddenly not having social media, they would still have all that free time to be able to do other things. So yes, social media has some good aspects and some bad ones to go with it. However, I do think that removing social media would have an overall negative impact solely due to how much our society is based on it. Now, what is the problem with this? The thing is, it is certainly a possibility we could lose social media, and it could happen really easily too. If something happened to our satellites or internet connections, we could see a worldwide cut in communication, which is why it is important to not base our society so much on something that is so unstable. Despite all of this, if I could say one thing about social media, it would be that it is an overall good thing for our world. It just shouldn't be the baseline.